He knocked it away. Oh my god. Long jump.
Hi everyone, I'm Jack Crawford, and it's time to review Killer Queen Black by Liquid Bit and BumbleBear Games. BumbleBear Games are the creators of the cult hit arcade game Killer Queen, and this is a new take on the ideas behind that game. So you still have the 3 ways to win, military, econ, and snail, and you still have the single queen, multiple drones team composition. But aside from that, so much has changed to make Killer Queen Black better suited for non-arcade audiences. Killer Queen Arcade is much more focused on the strategy, whereas Killer Queen Black puts an emphasis on execution. And for that reason, I can understand why some people still prefer the original. But in my opinion, this game successfully raises the skill cap and balances the strategic elements a bit better as well. And maybe the most important change to that end is the addition of berry throwing. The berries in this game remind me of the real-world objects in sports. They feel almost tangible. Trying to throw berries accurately is dependent on momentum and feels similar to shooting a basketball. Berries are constantly bouncing and rolling and knocking each other around, and you can knock them around without holding them. I've seen berries bounce off the edge of platforms the same way the ball can bounce off the edge of the table in table tennis. And you can take advantage of all that complexity and more. Or you can just carry a berry and place it in a hole. And it turns out pretty much all aspects of this game are like that, very easy to learn but hard to master. You might think that snail riding has the lowest skill cap of any role, but I love how it highlights the importance of dodging. Being able to predict and avoid attacks is always important in this game, but snail riding in particular rewards players who can create space by distracting the enemy team. Even if the snail isn't moving at all, if you can distract the enemy queen for 15 seconds, that's a huge win because of all the other things the queen could have been doing in that time. I also enjoy the snail eating mechanic and the fact that you're stuck on the snail if it's eating someone and they're invulnerable. This encourages baits and jukes and leads to some hilarious situations. For military drones, you essentially only have one type of attack, but it's far from simple. The flight adds depth because it's so heavily momentum-based. It also means that horizontal attacks aren't purely horizontal, their direction is partially determined by your vertical velocity. Flight adds depth to mace usage as well. The mace moves in slightly different patterns when you're near a wall or a platform. The mace also just takes a lot of practice to use effectively. For a new player, it's usually a matter of getting lucky, but an expert can better understand the rotation timing and the massive importance of positioning. The speed upgrade is definitely more situational, but I like that. Not every mechanic has to be used in every game to be a worthwhile inclusion. And it works, because while it's a bit risky to spend the extra time getting it, it can help with literally anything you could be doing. Econ, snail, any type of military. Shield is also very situational, and it seems like they at least tried to make it similarly versatile. It affects things like bonks and berry pushing, but it certainly isn't as useful for all roles as speed is, and I find that it doesn't really justify the amount of time spent getting it. The laser seems underpowered as well. I think I would like it more if the maps were a bit bigger, like in Killer Queen Arcade. The sword and the mace both help you defensively as well as offensively. Meanwhile, the laser has such a long cooldown that you can be chased down and killed way too easily. I've had some success using speed with the laser and trying to be evasive, but usually it's more trouble than it's worth. Like I mentioned earlier, predicting your enemy's next move is always important. Like in fighting games, you often get into standoffs where both players are waiting for the other to make a wrong move. But everything else in this game is always moving so fast, so you're discouraged from dancing around each other for very long. And generally, that's one of Killer Queen Black's best qualities. You almost never want to stay in the same place doing the same thing for an extended period of time. And a single drone dying, for instance, can completely change the dynamic of a game and force everyone to reevaluate their options. To be a great player, you have to master all the roles and be able to pay attention to the map and switch roles as needed. That variety and strategic decision making is a big part of the beauty of this game, especially when playing drone. Of course, queens play a part in the strategy too, but queen also has its own appeal. It's more about movement tech and execution. The queen's stinger is longer and thinner than the drone sword, so it has more reach, but requires more precision as well. You're also more easily punished as queen because your hitbox is longer. When you attack, you'll instantly be completely horizontal and vulnerable to attacks above and below you. Your dive and your horizontal attack cancel one another, so you can move horizontally with an attack and then dive at any point during that attack. Chaining them together also allows you to move through the maps vertically very quickly. Eventually, the typical paths get built into muscle memory, and you can move through them without even thinking about it, which allows you to shift your attention to what else is happening on the map. This type of awareness reminds me of Dota, where being able to perform well in lane and watch the minimap constantly is an important milestone in your progression as a player. So even though I personally prefer playing drone, Queen gameplay is certainly deep and interesting as well. And the roles are so different that the Queen and the drones are often thinking about completely different things from moment to moment. So in order to have a full understanding of every situation, you have to practice a form of empathy. A good queen has to consider what the drones are thinking, and vice versa. The map variety is another strong point. I think they've hit a sweet spot where each map feels distinct and you can build specific strategies for each map, but no map changes the game entirely. That said, there are a couple maps where Snail could be more useful in high-level play. Especially Helix Temple, because the queen can move through the middle of the map so easily, and the hives are usually military hotspots, so it's rare for any point in that snail journey to be safe at all. On top of all that core game design stuff, it's also got some solid pixel art, nice animations, just enough music to add hype at the right moments. There's a good alert system and in-game voice to encourage communication even when you're playing with strangers. The emote system is honestly perfect. The games end in a really satisfying way where it freezes on the last frame, zooms in, and shows these funny awards. The networking for this game works exceptionally well. Not enough people are playing this game yet, so sometimes you have to deal with players who have pretty high latency. And lots of competitive games would be borderline unplayable under those conditions, but I think Killer Queen Black handles it as well as you could reasonably expect. Of course, there are things that would be nice to have, like spectating and replays and practice lobbies for queue time, but those things can be added in the future, and Liquidbit seem committed to supporting and improving the game going forward. So yeah, I love this game. It's great to play with friends, even if they don't play a lot of games, but you can also take it really seriously and try to climb the leaderboard. In my opinion, the best way to play is with a dedicated team, but you can queue solo and have a great time too. This is a strong Game of the Year contender, and I can recommend it to pretty much everyone. And I'm giving Killer Queen Black an 8 out of 10, with definite potential to go up to a 9 with future updates. Let me know in the comments what you think of this here B game, and tell me what other new games I should review. Also, check out my other videos if you haven't seen them yet, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.